What's up, guys? As you can see, I have not one, not two, but three treadmills in front of me, and I'll get into why that is the case in this video. But specifically what I'm gonna be going over, and I'll have a lot of timestamps down below, I'm gonna be talking about the F89 from SOLE and the R2 walking pad. As a full coverage of this video, I'm gonna share with you why I chose to do these two specific treadmills for review, why there is a second F89 next to me. I'll give you guys my brutally honest thoughts about these treadmills, which were sent to me free for review. I will put some discount codes and links down in the description box if you do want to help support me and the channel. But I'll say right up front, of all the review videos I've done, this one specifically I've been really dying to release because I've been sitting on this broken F89 unit for almost 2 months, hiding it out of frame, wheeling it in and out of shots so you guys couldn't see it. And I have to get rid of this thing, and I'll talk about that as we go along in this video. I have covered other cardiovascular based equipment on the channel, such as the stepper most recently, a Rogue Echo bike. I do actually love cardiovascular activity. I sometimes just kind of fall out of it out of habit and time, but I thought it was about time I actually go ahead and make a treadmill video. So instead of making two separate reviews for two products that I was kind of basically on the fence on which one I wanted to review for two distinct different purposes, which I'll get into in this video, I do think at some point in time though, I did need a treadmill in my home gym. So as we get into it, guys, I'll give you guys my honest thoughts and opinions on it. Please like, share, and subscribe if you guys like content like this. So before we get into the specific reviews of each of these products, I first want to talk about why I went ahead and chose to cover these two particular brands, because I've been solicited many treadmill reviews from other companies and I've turned them all down. Just like every review I've done on this channel, this is not a sponsored paid promotional video. There are affiliate links, again, shameless plug and promo codes. I'll link them down below. It helps support me in the channel. But the reason I went with these two particular products, one, well, primarily is because they basically own the space that they operate in. SOLE seems to be the dominant home fitness player for treadmills. And then the walking pad is what it sounds like. They definitely dominate this foldable, collapsing, walkable based treadmills that seem to be very popular. A lot of other kind of off-brand companies. These guys seem to have the best reputation, biggest catalog of products. For those kind of walking-based, non-incline treadmills. And I will say with this one, I picked this one specifically, which I'll get into, is because you can actually run with this one aside from walking. Gonna roll this walking pad out of the way, which is one of the features about this particular treadmill. It's easy to kind of get out of the way. Talking specifically about the F89 and a very brief, painful story about why I have two of these treadmills. But this one right here was sent to me about 2 months ago, and when I got it, I'm gonna assume, given the benefit of the doubt, that this was just a lemon. There were a lot of issues right out of the box. It is very simple in the way this thing is assembled. It does come in a giant pallet, and even when I talked to delivery guys, actually the second guy who delivered this one, this guy said he delivers so many SOLE treadmills, it was kind of unbelievable. I did ask him how many he actually returns, and he says very few. So take that for whatever you will. But keeping in mind, this is a kind of a newer model that came out. I was eager to kind of get on this one and see what this was like. The assembly is very easy for these treadmills. There's only a few screws, to be honest. But with that being said, this one in particular had a couple screws that just did not want to fit in the grooves of their slots. And it was just an incredibly frustrating process for something that should have taken maybe 15 minutes to assemble. This one took 2 seconds, did not take that long. I definitely recommend 2 people. You're gonna want 2 people. This one though, just seemed to take a while. I don't know why. Once I turned it on, there was some sort of weird noise over here, like something was rubbing. I took this plastic part off, adjusted something, and it kind of fixed that. But the big thing was, on this one, I kept getting this error 3 code immediately when I turned it on. Now, this error 3 code is somewhat notorious, and I learned a lot about treadmills, and I tried to kind of fix this myself, realizing it wasn't going anywhere fast. Error 3 code basically means the incline feature does not work. So this thing worked totally fine. Screen, everything was working totally good. You could run on it on a flat incline. Speed all worked good, but the incline did not go, and as well as the decline did not go. This thing does have a decline feature, which I'll talk about. So that was the big issue. So this thing essentially did not work. I contacted them, didn't hear everything for a period of time. They eventually sent me out to the customer service tech, this guy Shane deserves a raise from the company SOLE. This guy is unbelievable, awesome customer service on his regard. The people I was communicating with though took a long time to get back to me. Once they sent out a specialist, kind of like from a subcontracted, from like a contracted company or something, this specialist came up, rolled up, literally like Harvey Keitel from Pulp Fiction, as like a specialist in this fancy car, just came with a screwdriver, a couple of tools. This guy seemed very confident he could fix it. He could not fix this thing. End of the day, he thinks it was a broken console or it needs another console. This console is on back ordered, still have not gotten it. They're still gonna send it in to fix it, but this is why this thing has been sitting here collecting dust. So SOLE, kind of redeeming themselves a little bit, which I definitely appreciate, went ahead and just sent me a second F89. If you're wondering what I'm gonna do with this thing, I'm probably gonna definitely get it fixed and then give it away to a friend. I literally was about to disassemble this thing and throw it to the junkyard, but I feel like it's a bad use of a perfectly good used machine, so someone gets something out of it. I'm gonna get into this good model first, but I wanna show you, which is one of the great features about this machine, is the fact that you can easily lower it and raise it fairly simple with the touch of this yellow button here. So I'm gonna roll this beast out of the way first. So you guys can jump to the website and I will flash some of the features here on the screen to get more information, but I thought I'd just highlight what I think makes the F89 stand out, not just among the SOLE treadmills, but also other treadmills based on some of their specs that you guys can find on the website. Now they do specialize in treadmills, but one of the issues with something like this is that there are so many different models for the consumer. It can seem like, well, what's the ideal one to choose and what are the big differences? This gets to be an issue where, like, really, I think when you start paying a little bit more money for this particular unit, which goes for, I think it's the most expensive, you know, base model treadmill design that's out there. It's like $32.99 is what it goes for, minus any kind of specific promo codes or anything like that. There are, of course, some major kind of functional differences, and then there are some quality of life differences. But I think across the board, and even on this model, they do have a lifetime warranty on the frame and motor, 3-year warranty on the deck electronics and wear items, 1-year warranty for labor. You do start comparing closely the F85, which they say is their #1 seller, compared to this F89 that I'm on. It does seem like the primary difference where it counts, although the F89 is a little bit heavier, the dimensions are slightly a little bit just larger than the F89. The big difference essentially is that touchscreen just being 21.5-inch touchscreen compared to the F80 sitting at a 15.6 touchscreen. But otherwise, where it counts in the basic mechanics of the machine, they're pretty much identical. The F89, they're getting kind of sold as their new top model in the folding series of their treadmills. So they're essentially saying it's taking everything good from the F89 and taking it up a notch. It more so seems like it's pretty much the screen. Otherwise, other boasting things about this machine, it has this, they say, a Z-shaped frame comparable to the, I believe it's the Peloton. The frame is made out of aluminum anodized, and it says top-of-the-line technology, precise ergonomics, and engineering. We'll get into that, though, as far as where it counts and actually using it here in a second. But those would be all the main features and take-home features I would say about this machine. Okay, so getting into where it counts on this treadmill, to be totally honest, its form, function, how it feels, the aesthetics, does it live up to the big hype from the SOLE brand and this specific model? It's been a while since I've gone on any kind of commercial grade treadmill, but I've certainly had my fair share of that. I've gone through stints on and off of specifically running cardio indoors, and also I typically like to go outdoors. I haven't done that as much as I'd like to in the last 2 summers, but I do like running when that kind of kick hits me. I will say, just walking on it and jumping on it, this thing does feel very close, if not exactly comparable to what I remember being in a gym. It's definitely wide enough, has a good kind of absorption as you're kind of running. You don't feel any kind of jarring, kind of like, you know, shin splinting type of movements, but I think a lot of even cheaper treadmills kind of have that going for them. Feels very fluid in this whole drive here. You do feel a little close to this lever. If you want to stay close to this rail here, you do feel like this foot could get kind of, you know, hitting this little metal plastic. And that's mostly only a concern when I'm up here trying to touch things on the console and the screen. Incline and decline are awesome. For me, whenever I go on a treadmill, I actually always put even like a 1 or a 2. I will definitely run on this thing, but sometimes I like to just kind of power walk a little bit sometimes too, listening to music, responding to emails, definitely watching YouTube videos. As I said with my stepper review, I didn't know how much I would like a giant screen, but this is definitely something I've gotten really accustomed to. I'm not really a big TV person. I don't know anything about like pop culture, TV, movies, anything like that. I do like YouTube. I do like catching up on kind of like, you know, digestible content that's educational. So I can see myself, you know, maximizing this. I'll get to the console specifically in a second. Other stuff just right here, gigantic cup holders. This all feels very good as far as like the aesthetics and how this works. Heart rate monitor, I will say, just stinks. I don't think it works very good at all. It definitely doesn't seem to be responsive, because I'd be working pretty hard and this thing would get to be like 100 something, and I know that it's not that, and I would hold my hand there for a while. Could just be me, maybe I'm doing something wrong with the heart rate sensors, do not feel good. You can sync your heart rate though if you got some sort of Bluetooth heart rate monitor. Definitely love these little paddles to adjust things. I use these things pretty much all the time. You also got button touches up here which are useful, and you can do screen touches on here for various settings up there as well. Fan is pretty much useless. It gives you pretty much no relief whatsoever, and it kind of blows in a weird direction, almost like going towards the screen. This might give you some relief if you're like at the 7th layer of hell and you wanted some sort of relief, but otherwise the breeze is pretty much minimal. I wouldn't even turn it on. What I do think is really cool, I never had anything like this, is if you put your phone here, it does have a little charging deck. And if you just kind of position, I think a certain way with at least with my iPhone, with the camera face up to the top right of this, it starts charging and it does something really cool, which I've never seen. You guys might already be familiar with this, where you'll actually put your code in and then it starts just kind of replaying your pictures and your album while it's charging. So that's actually a really cool feature. I love this. So this thing is all set up for all sorts of tablets and devices. If you want to set things up, you could have like a voice call with somebody while you're walking and doing stuff. Might be a little excessive with all the screens, but that also works. You can also cast from your phone onto here. That is something you couldn't do on, say, my stepper. Even though these are boasted as like anodized aluminum and this is kind of high quality, the aesthetics up here I think is where they save money. This kind of feels like plastic, and I think if you go to most commercial gyms, they're gonna have plastic up here, but this feels a little bit more on the cheaper side, and that's probably where they're saving money. The screen, while it's great, I'm not getting like high definition quality, and I think I started seeing stuff from streaming. They go to like 1080p, and my Wi-Fi seems to work really well. For some reason in the garage though, on this screen and also my stepper, it starts freezing. But otherwise, fairly responsive. It's definitely more responsive than my stepper stair climber, but fairly responsive screen. YouTube works great. That's pretty much what I've been using to kind of just mess around as far as media is concerned, but it has all the apps I think that you possibly would need that are out there. Has tons of free classes. I think a lot of people will appreciate to have no subscription, so that's also really cool. Definitely seems like they are, since they're their most prominent at-home treadmill company, that's something cool I think they'll keep offering, and it definitely seems like it's all free, so that's a great plus with them. It's a big, nice little ecosystem there. Outside of running-based classes and walking, they have other things like boxing and I think yoga and stuff like that. I'm honestly not gonna use them. I tried them a little bit to kind of see what they're like. Those are cool. I know my wife's gonna use it. My wife is definitely gonna be loving this treadmill, or she already has actually been loving it. So someone like that, if you love classes, you like following along and stuff like that, I think you'll appreciate it. I just never gonna use it. I pretty much stick to this screen right here. They have things like a track setting, which I think is awesome. Like in a lot of treadmills used to have that. That keeps me kind of just motivated to keep going around the track visually. They have various fitness assessments as well. And I'm pretty sure there's like leaderboards and charts on here too that you can do, and also just charts your long-term progress in the system when you go ahead and make an account. I know I've already mentioned it, but I think the incline decline really is awesome, especially the decline. I don't think I've ever been on a treadmill that had a decline, or at least I never used it. So that was kind of a funky experience. Overall, what I would summarize with this machine, I had a lot of time on this thing. There's just only so many clips I think you on a recorder seeing yourself kind of run and walk on this. This thing is awesome. I definitely love this thing. I think it does what it does very well. The shortcomings to me are just maybe some ergonomics up here. Heart rate monitor doesn't seem to work very well. Plastic up here can feel kind of cheap. The screen is very nice and large. I think you probably get used to a smaller screen, but if you're maximizing that screen a lot, I can see where a larger screen might be a luxury where you might pay more for it. Aside from the lemons on that machine, I can't say anything negative about this thing. This thing is actually very cool and is definitely something that I'll be using more often in the future. So transitioning to the walking pad, like I said at the start, these things have been solicited to me many times from other companies. This is a very popular device for a lot of people. It's just practical for most people, just making little kind of work breaks, something they can walk indoors. Great that you can fold up and roll anywhere out of the way. That's super awesome. I've always kind of hesitant with them because I didn't really know, the longevity of them. It seemed maybe kind of like initially I thought it was kind of more of a gimmicky thing. A lot of those initially didn't have kind of rails up here to hold on to. I thought it'd be kind of weird to get my balance walking on something that didn't have rails. And this company certainly offers that too in their low tier area. So the reason I wanted to review their R2 model was specifically because it does have these rails. It is still compact. It is still from a reputable brand. I would think in this space, based on what I'm seeing so far, these guys are dominating that whole entire space of walking pads. They have tons of various other reviews, a lot of other stuff on the internet that says these things so far are withstanding the test of time. So I appreciate that. The R2 though model specifically, what is great about it is, aside from all the other characteristics it has, is that you can also run on it. So there's only a few walking pads that they offer that you can go ahead and run, I think up to like 7 miles per hour. And it does handle it pretty well. What is kind of huge, it might be a game breaker for a lot of people, is that there's no incline feature on this. So I could see myself using this indoors. I hopefully want to be able to kind of fold it up, put it out of the way. If I wanted to fold it out and do some little intervals or walk and talk or whatever on here, I could do this if I want to. But after going on this one, I think definitely having more of those bells and whistles is more beneficial for me. The big make or break here, and I'll get into this kind of the other aesthetics, how it feels and works here in a second, is that on an uneven surface like I am in this garage, it likes to kind of teeter a little bit. If I had my stall mat set up, I think I'd be totally fine, so that might not apply to you. But this thing definitely has to be on a pretty flat surface, otherwise it will have a little bit of a wobble. But with that being said, this thing is not cheap. It is still $8,000, and I think really, hopefully what I think you're paying for is the longevity of the product and functionality, and the fact that this thing does go pretty fast. I'm sure, of course, you could find more budget options. And that does seem to be something across the website that Walking Pad likes to kind of put front and center, that this is not a cheap walking pad. And that was, again, my hesitation to review other products like this in this space. It does have this thing called foot sense tech, which is definitely there. So it says walking forward and the belt increases the speed. Walking in the middle keeps the speed the same. Want to slow down, just carefully move back to the belt. So that's also kind of a cool, respectable feature. Of course, a safety feature as well. You guys probably already saw this already, but these rails can go up and down, which is nice. This thing does come fully assembled. So right out of the box, you're pretty much ready to go. I didn't even look at the directions, which I definitely encourage you guys to do. Would encourage you guys to put the safety strap on too. That's not something I was doing also. Got a decent, I mean, I shouldn't say decent, but at least they have something like this. Somewhere to kind of put your phone so you can do listen or talk or do something with that. So that's pretty cool. I actually wonder how high you could put this. Now that I'm talking to you guys, I wonder if this is something that you could actually, it's a decent height there. So especially if you're a little more on the shorter side, this might be something you actually physically kind of watch something still and be functional that way. How it works, simple remote, just press the button, the middle button starts beeping, and then you have this remote dial here. This is, obviously to raise this up a little higher, this is gonna wiggle a little bit more than when it's shorter. I would probably put it more like right there. Just has a plus and minus to adjust the settings. You guys will see various speeds in the video. Of course, I walked on it and I ran on it to the 7.5 speed it gets to. Feels very comfortable. It's for the most part pretty quiet. There is this kind of swooshing noise you can kind of hear a little bit. It's pretty low to the ground, but it's off the ground enough that it could work on thin carpet. I think if you had shag carpet, I think it would start getting pretty close to that. What you do notice, and what's weird enough, this is the first time I don't notice it as much, but I don't know what that is, I'm just getting used to it, or just maybe these shoes I'm wearing, is that you sometimes can feel where the crease of the machine is, where you fold it, you can feel that a little bit in your shoes. It's not a giant deal, but it's something that will be present, which of course kind of makes sense. This thing is not totally flat, so that's not gonna be totally perfect. The base is fine. If you do step off this thing for a bit, it will automatically turn off. Just like that, it'll slow down and turn off. That's a cool kind of safety measure. Just start it back up to keep going. What I'll say with the walking pad, specifically the R2, this is one of those products, and I say this in a good way, that what you see is pretty much what you get. There's really no surprises here. If you're expecting to kind of be blown out of the water, I wouldn't really expect that. I mean, if you want something that's comfortable, it does the job, you can walk, it's got this remote setting, it works out of the box, no issues whatsoever. Functionally can adjust up and down, stores away fairly easy, rolls out of the way pretty easy. It's also good dimensions, where I say you can actually wheel it through basic door frames very easy, typical stuff you find in your house. You could store it away in a closet fairly easy. So for what it does really well, and it kind of makes sense. This is kind of their bread and butter, so I wouldn't expect anything other than this. The biggest thing I think in most people's brain, if you're spending this much money for a treadmill, is the longevity of it, and that's something it seems like to be they take a lot of pride in, and again, they have a lot of good reviews. So some summary thoughts, and wrapping up my thoughts about these two distinct types of treadmills, the Walking Pad R2 and this F89 SOLE treadmill. I should say these two SOLE treadmills. I will first say, if I'm honest, this was the most frustrating review video I've ever done, to have to sit and still have two of these treadmills sitting next to me because of this lemon of a treadmill that I got. Very frustrated with this thing, but it seems like SOLE has taken care of it. With this model, it could have just been an exception. Something weird happened with that thing. But with the F89s, all things considered, I think what you're paying for is definitely there. All the bells and whistles are there in a typical treadmill. It boasts itself as a very high-end, borderline commercial grade thing. I wouldn't say it's right there with it, within the way it kind of feels, but where it actually forms and functions with the movement mechanics of the incline, decline setting, the speed, how it feels, the touch screen, which I would say that's probably a luxury that I think even some commercial gyms don't have that. that is definitely very cool. Between this and the F85, F85 is probably the better deal. It's just a smaller screen. If you do value the screen, like I could see if you bought something like this and you're used to a bigger screen and you got something cheaper, I think you would really notice that. Like anything, I think you'd probably get used to it. Where it counts, I think this thing, when it works and everything's assembled and it functions properly, it's a hard treadmill to beat. So I'm very happy with this thing. As much as I was dogging on it and very frustrated with it, I can see myself probably using this more than any cardio piece that's out there based on the function and feel of what it does. And I would actually include my wife in that as well. This one, again, very different price point, although still pretty expensive for a treadmill, all things considered. I think what you're paying on this walking pad is the simple fact that it is versatile, it's compact, you can break it apart, move it around. It's primarily there for walking, but you could run with it. No incline features. Really, I think what you're paying for is the brand name and the longevity of the product. I think that's what Walking Pad kind of prides himself in. If I was gonna recommend anything like this would probably be the brand that I would go with as far as how it functions and feels and their customer service. That's also something I didn't say enough. These guys are really good in talking back to me with questions that I had and the reps that I had, and I always think that's a good sign. That's it though, guys. A pretty self-explanatory video on this one. I know both these machines are gonna get a lot of heavy use from whoever has these things, including this one. When this gets fixed, I'll be giving this one away to a friend. But if you guys have any questions, comments, let me know. I will pin a comment down below if anything else happens. If you guys like this review, find it helpful, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, or checking those affiliate links with some discount codes I have down below for both of these products. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next video.